I'm joined now by Global Affairs Analyst Michael Bociurkiw, who's a former spokesman for the Organisation for Security and Cooperation in Europe's Special Monitoring Mission to Ukraine. So we know that Ukraine was pushing very hard for the release of these ships as a gesture of goodwill ahead of the peace summit. Does this bode well then for negotiations over eastern Ukraine?
Good to be with you. Well, maybe Christmas has come early for President Zelensky. For sure, this could give him a bump in popularity at home. Of course, the most important thing were the return of the sailors. That happened quite a few weeks ago now. But the return of the ships, comes at an interesting time ahead of that peace summit, now scheduled to be on December 9th in Paris. However, remains to be seen whether the boats are even seaworthy, whether they've been tampered with, whether they're handing back the ammunition. A number of questions there, but for sure, this is more or less good news for Zelensky ahead of that summit.
Is there definitely going to be a peace summit this year? It's been mentioned by all parties, but then also there have been some interesting noises from the Kremlin seeming to suggest that no precise date has been set for the meeting.
Good question. I know President Macron is pushing very hard for this. He now, I guess, considers himself the kind of statesman of Europe, and this would be a win for him too. But it remains to be seen. We will not know for sure until the very day whether President Putin will actually show up. But if he does, Maryam, this would be the first time that Putin and Zelensky meet face to face, and the dynamics of that relationship will be very interesting to see. But I'm not holding up much hope that things will go that well for the Ukrainian side, especially given that Russia knows Ukraine doesn't have the full backing of the U.S. president, who has been a traditional backer of that country.
Right, and I suppose perhaps recent developments in Washington around the impeachment inquiry have revealed some details that put Ukraine at a disadvantage in negotiations with Russia.
Oh, absolutely. The Ukrainians did, of course, get that $400 million in aid, economic aid, military aid. However, going forth, whenever they're going to be sitting at the negotiating table with Russia, with Putin, who's known to be very, very manipulative, going in there and not having that backing of the U.S. president puts them at a very, very big disadvantage. I think it could be left up to European countries, France, Germany especially, to show very clearly that they are on the Ukrainian side and they have their backing. But without the United States, it's a very, very big disadvantage for Ukraine.
Russia might have the upper hand in these talks, but there is a great deal at stake. Conflict's gone on for 5 years. Yeah. Many innocent civilians have been caught up in the violence, 13,000 killed. Is it not in Russia's interest to bring this to a peaceful resolution?
One would think. I mean, I've been in the conflict zone many, many times. I've seen the destruction for myself. But I think what Russia will be pushing for, which the Ukrainian side will find it difficult to swallow, what they'll push for is an election in the territories that have been occupied by the Russian-backed rebels, and an election that will give us this semi-autonomous status. So that could relieve Russia of some of the burden of keeping this war up. But at the same time, it will give them quite a bit of leverage over going forward. So really a lot up in the air, and a lot that could very badly damage Zelensky politically at home.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing your insight on this with us. So we do appreciate it. Michael Bociurkiw, former spokesman for the Organisation for Security and Cooperation in Europe's Special Monitoring Mission to Ukraine, sharing his thoughts with us on that story.